Okay, that's enough headbanging for now. So today I just thought of making a video. So since there's not much to do in this quarantine, got no strings and got no beer, and so basically got nothing much to do. So here we are, quarantine random talks, where we can talk about anything under the sun, or anywhere below the 38th parallel. Wait, that doesn't sound right. But anyhow, so this is it, Quarantine Random Talks. Okay, so today's question is heavy metal music satanic? Okay, that's stupid. So this is a very interesting question, especially for me, because the thing about being into heavy metal music is that you get stereotyped as devil worshippers or demon worshippers, or worse, Satanists. So why is that? And is it true? So coming from an actual metalhead, so let's discuss that question. So I've had my fair share. I've had my fair share of being stereotyped as such. So here we are. So for the easy answer, the easy answer is no. The hard answer is yes and no, for so many reasons. Not necessarily good reasons. Now, for us to understand this, we need to go back way back time, back in the medieval times, at the time where classical musicians. At the time of the classical musicians, and also the time that the church was booming, so to speak. And at those times, when we say music, how the church says it is that music should be godly, should be heavenly. Every kind of music should be worshiping God. So, and if you go against this principle or teaching, they'll treat you as criminals. So why I say this, because if you back in the day, when you defy the church or you go against the teachings of the church, you're evil. And it was the same for the medieval musicians back then, who tried defying, because yes, music should be heavenly and worshiping God and sit and yeah, but apparently for those in those medieval times, for those musicians, there were musicians that tried experimenting, that tried to engage on darker themes. Some musicians took inspiration from the image and the characteristics of the devil. So, and it isn't no different from heavy metal musicians today. So the heavy metal the musicians in the 80s, or the first heavy metal musicians in the 80s, were just the modern versions of those medieval musicians who tried making music out of inspiration or out of the image of and darkness of the devil. And mind you, with these medieval musicians, when they try to make dark songs with a darker sound, they've been tagged as devil worshipping or Satanists. And worse, the church didn't treat them well, because they'll be tagged as criminals, they'd be imprisoned, or worse, they'd be killed. And that's not an exaggeration. It is a fact. Important to mention is back in those times, they tried playing the devil's chord or the devil's triad. So let me show this to you. Let me grab this guitar. Oh, okay, so it doesn't have a string on it as well. Lovely. Okay, so the devil's chord sounds like this. And back in the day, when they hear that, they think of it as the devil's music, the devil's sound. And they get horrified by that. And one thing to blame is because of the church's teachings that, oh, that kind of music is bad. So so when you play that, they'll tag you as criminals and get you in prison, or worse, you could go to jail. Yeah, remember your science class, Galileo Galilei? So he went out to the world and said, hey guys, I just discovered the earth is round and there's this thing called gravity that keeps our feet on the ground. And the church guys, the religious people were like, hey, that is against the teachings of the Lord. This man should be in prison. So yes, Galileo Galilei was imprisoned. And you all know the story. Well, okay, a fun fact. Galileo Galilei was very religious to the point that he compelled his daughter to become a nun in the hopes that God would forgive him for defying the teachings of the church, which was the earth was flat. But he went against it and said the earth was round and there's this thing called gravity. Anyway, that's another story. So it's the same thing as how the heavy metal musicians came in the 80s when Black Sabbath came and experimented with the devil's chord. And also, one of the reasons why heavy metal has been given a negative light by religion, by most people, is because of its theme of its dystopian theme of darkness, destruction, war. Why is that? Important to understand. Important to understand is because at the creation of the heavy metal genre, that was in the late 70s and the early 80s, life in that time was very dystopian. People were war-stricken, trying to recover their lives, but they couldn't, and they are looking at a hopeless future. That's why most of the songs in that time, metal songs in particular, deal with those dystopian thoughts: war, destruction, disease, death. And the people kind of like it because it's an affirmation of how they felt. And also, because of this, heavy metal was given a very bad light. Religion is also one thing to blame. Okay, but let's ask again. So why was heavy metal stereotyped as devil worshipping or Satanist? Because it's how religion and history played around this genre. But if you think about it, heavy metal as a whole is not satanic. Of course, heavy metal music, in a general sense, is all about aggression, anger, destruction, war, and releasing your negative feelings. It's a music of freedom. It promotes being yourself. So, having that said, it could be used by those who want to express themselves, and Satanists are not an exception. They discovered heavy metal and used it as a medium to promote their satanic themes, and that's how black metal came into inception. And it was because of the notoriety or being notorious of these black metal bands that heavy metal was given a bad light, an image that it is satanic. But actually, it's just It's just black metal. It's just the Satanists who played heavy metal music who are Satanists. They simply took their Satanist ideals and played it on the heavy metal genre. And if you want to actually see real Satan worshipping music and Satan worshipping bands, go check out black metal bands, those Norwegian black metal bands who actually do devil worshipping and actually do church burnings. So as a whole, going back to the question, is heavy metal satanic? The easy answer is no. The hard answer is yes and no, for so many reasons, and not necessarily good reasons. Why? Well, you could say yes, because how it came into its inception, they tried making music out of inspired by darkness, horror themes, and images of the devil. Yes, they tried doing those, but just as an inspiration, one could actually say that Satan, or the demon, is in the DNA of the metal genre. But actually it isn't exactly like that, because look at it this way. I'm an artist and I want to make a dark and horrific drawing, so I'll draw a picture, an image of the devil, so to make it horrifying. But I'm not necessarily worshipping the devil, I'm just making a drawing out of the inspiration of the devil, right? So one could say yes, because of having that inspiration from the devil, and also because of being tagged as such by religion and history. So one could say yes. That's why the hard answer is yes and no. And you could say no because of how heavy metal music has become today. It has grown, it is very large, and it does not, and I repeat, not specifically deal with Satan. The heavy metal genre is a very huge genre, and the Satan worshipping black metal is only a small part of the very huge heavy metal genre. So let's say in a lawyer's perspective, or in a law student's perspective, let's say it this way. Is heavy metal satanic? As a general rule, no. Exception for those black metal musicians who specifically worship the devil, who specifically play Satan worshipping songs and other songs for Satan worshipping purposes. That's an exception. But as a whole, as a general rule, it's not. So as a takeaway, what I would say is, rather than just being curious and asking the question, how about exploring the genre itself? Try listening to heavy metal songs. The heavy metal genre is a very huge genre with so many subgenres that you could go on forever discussing those subgenres. You couldn't even count all of them. And see for yourself. If you like it, then good. If not, then you don't have to, right? And also, as for me, although that question really bothered me back in my younger days, but actually I just kind of joke around it, like when people say, "Oh, you're into heavy metal?" Yes. And they ask again, "Do you worship the devil? Are you a devil worshiper?" And I'll say, "Oh yes, I'm a devil worshiper," but just for the joke of it. Remember what Tyrion said, that use it as your armor and nobody could use it against you? Yeah, so I kind of use that. So, do you worship the devil? And I'll be like, "Oh yes, I worship the devil." But everyone knows I'm just joking around. Anyway, that's all for today's video. Thank you for watching for this first episode of Quarantine Random Talks, where we can talk about anything under the sun and anywhere below the 38th parallel. And if you have topics or things that we want to talk about, you can write it down in the comment section below, or you can message me para na ako'y ka-chat. And as always, thank you for watching. Have a nice life and keep worshiping Satan. Okay.